What a week in women's sports. I mean, it was absolutely packed with legacy-defining wins, some really tough conversations, and a trend that, honestly, almost nobody saw coming. So let's just dive right in.
Okay, so I want to start with just one single number, 9. That's it. What do you think that means? A record maybe? A jersey number? Nope, it's actually the key to one of the most emotional and credible stories of the entire week. 9 years of losing. Can you imagine? 9 years of watching your biggest rival celebrate while you just fall short. And then, finally, a breakthrough. This single number kicks off our first big story, a classic underdog tale.
All right, first up, the week's big wins. And trust me, we have to start with the good stuff because there were some moments this week that were just absolutely historic.
So, remember that number 9? Well, here it is. In the legendary boat race, Oxford's women's team pulled off a huge upset against Cambridge. I mean, this wasn't just another win. This was them finally breaking that 9-year losing streak. Think about that. It's a total legacy shifter in one of the oldest rivalries on the planet. You can just feel the emotion pouring out of a victory like that.
Okay, so we're going from a historic win on the water to an absolute game changer on the basketball court. The WNBA players just locked in a brand new collective bargaining agreement, or CBA. And look, this is so much more than just a piece of paper. We're talking higher salaries, sure, but also a brand new revenue sharing model and way better benefits. But the really crucial part is this.
They didn't just play, they literally changed the business of the game. They completely reshaped the financial landscape of their own sport. So yeah, it's not just about a bigger paycheck, it's about the players becoming real partners in the business. And that is a massive, massive step forward for all of professional women's sports.
All right, but the week wasn't all celebrations. It also served as a pretty stark reminder that for a lot of athletes, the biggest challenges happen way off the court or the field. We're moving into the fights beyond the game.
And that's really the tough reality, isn't it? While some athletes are fighting for trophies and better contracts, others are just fighting for their own safety. They're fighting for basic protections inside the very sports they love. So, a really big story that broke this week was a major abuse scandal coming out of Czech women's football. And, this isn't just one bad situation. It really shines a light on a much bigger, systemic problem, this global lack of protection for athletes and the desperate, desperate need for real accountability. It's a really difficult conversation, but it's an absolutely essential one we have to have.
And that brings us to another really complex fight. This one's centered around policy. The IOC has new eligibility rules for transgender and intersex athletes, and it sparked this huge discussion. It basically puts two core values head-to-head. On one side, you have the argument for fairness, which usually focuses on competitive balance based on biological categories. On the other side, you have the principle of inclusion, the idea that every single athlete has a right to participate. It's a real balancing act, and honestly, it's one of the toughest conversations shaping the future of sports.
Okay, and for our last section, we've got something kind of weird. The upset that wasn't. Yeah, you heard that right. It's a story where the biggest surprise was that there were no surprises at all.
So, you know how the NCAA women's tournament is supposed to be all about March chaos, right? Cinderella stories, big upsets? Well, not this year. Not even close. I mean, just look at this. The number of upsets just plummeted. The real story wasn't who won. It was how totally predictable it all was.
So what's going on here? Well, it might be pointing to a really interesting new trend, just sheer, utter dominance. It feels like the gap between the absolute top teams and everybody else is getting wider and wider. And we're seeing this in other sports too. You look at someone like skier Mikaela Shiffrin, who just locked up another World Cup title. She's just untouchable, constantly rewriting the record books.
So that leaves us with this big question to chew on. We had a week that gave us a heart-stopping 9 years in the making kind of upset, right? But it also showed us this growing trend toward absolute predictability. So what happens when that kind of dominance is the new drama? What does it even mean to win anymore?